Hi, friends. I'm Ameet Khabra, owner and founder of Hopskip Media. With me is Sarah Stemen. She's a Google Ads consultant, and I guess her zone of genius is in audits. She and I were recently at Google Marketing Live, which was a really cool experience, but we want to take some time to talk about it and talk about what we love, what we hated, what we're really, really scared about. But this is a special episode. We have our two really good friends, Navah Hopkins, evangelist at Optimizer, and Jyll Saskin, Google Ads coach, with us today. I am so excited to have you guys here. Thank you so much for coming.
So excited to
Thank
be here.
you.
Of course, I want to get into it right away because we've got a lot to cover in a short amount of time. So first and foremost, we had a lot of updates that actually happened at GML. What are our initial thoughts on the incremental testing going from 100K to 5,000 now? Let's go.
So, on the one hand, I really love that Google is lowering the bar, making it a ton easier for every brand to lean into that incremental testing. On the other, there's the pragmatic math question of will you be able to get enough data off of that $5,000 spend? And to be fair, incremental testing should be available to everybody. There, we can talk about that it's maybe a sales tool to get more people to think about YouTube because maybe Google is struggling to get people to invest in YouTube. But at the end of the day, I think it is more of a PR play than a usage adoption play of incremental testing. But that doesn't change the fact that it's a net positive that more people have access to a really powerful tool.
It's not the only thing I found to be a bit more of a PR play, because I agree with everything you've said. I think something else that falls in a similar boat was the smart bidding exploration, which is supposed to be the biggest advance in bidding in a decade. And it's really just a way to test if lowering your target ROAS increases your reach profitably. And it's only for search and it's only for TROAS, and barely anyone needs this. So the incrementality testing being available to more people is great. But like out of all Google Ads users in the world, maybe 1% will run an incrementality test. Same with like a shoppable masthead. Love that for the big advertisers. Most people will never buy a masthead in their life. So there were a couple of these that like sound really cool, but there were some different announcements that were more practical for more Google Ads users.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say whenever I hear Google make big announcements like this, I actually think about the number of vendors or sort of other companies that it tends to displace with Google, because it really is a chance where third-party apps can come in and offer that incrementality testing. That being said, when you do have the spender doing the measurement, you do get some natural questions that come with that.
Yeah. Nava.
One thing that I don't know if enough people paid attention to is the gift that this represents, much like the gift that Microsoft Clarity represented. So Microsoft Clarity with behavioral analytics put Microsoft code on a whole bunch of websites. And even if the average brand was not going to do a lot of work with Microsoft Clarity and behavioral analytics and may not have had the sophistication to really use it appropriately, that still was a free, amazing resource that put Microsoft code on those sites. And so one thing that I suspect is at play with this, and then also a lot of this server-side reporting, a lot of the updates during the data guy section, felt like free, amazing tools or much lowered investment bar tools to get Google invested and embedded in brands' website experiences. And I'm really curious if you all think that that is leaning more into kind of that AI agentic web, or if that's purely more that measurement PPC piece.
I mean, I think Google has always been, up until GA4, a leader in measurement. So that's complicated. I think it goes hand in hand with what they offer. But I think GA4 brought a lot of those questions about, like, how do I put it? Like truthfulness and trust to the equation. Now, that being said, I mean, you get into like how different analytics tools work differently. You change the entire model of how we measure, at the same time as you put in a new product. We were all used to just, I want to call it like a strict count versus like a Google Ads and how they count, like accrual-based versus cash-based accounting. So it brought questions that if you've lived in analytics your whole career, you always sort of knew about, but those questions were at the forefront for the masses who are used to logging in and having that like one-to-one relationship of, I get this.
So let's move on to the agentic stuff, the marketing advisor that everyone's kind of skeptical of, which I And very much so. I made that very clear. For me, it just sounds like recommendations, just a different version of them. And I think about like the small business owner that's just going to be like, oh yeah, they gave me context as to why they want me to make this change. Therefore, I should make this change. It's a good idea. But it just sounds like basically another version of recommendations or AIs really at this point to me. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I agree. I think at the start, it'll probably suck. I mean, like most AI features do, right? When smart bidding first launched, it totally sucked. And now, in my opinion, there are very few reasons not to use smart bidding. So I imagine when the Your Google Ads expert and the Your Google Analytics expert launch, it'll be just recommendations down your throat. But what would be interesting is over time, it was able to learn from you. And so rather than just applying the same experiences across every account, just like Gemini or ChatGPT learns your writing style, learns what you like to do, etc., I am hopeful that it will become much more personalized to your account and you can tell it things like, never recommend this, or I prefer to use this strategy. So I don't know if Google Ads would want that, but that's the way I could see it becoming much more useful across a wide range of practitioners and users.
One thing that I think is really important to distinguish is the agentic web versus the agent within Google Ads. So the Google Ads agent, the demo was super cool, and I will admit I'm a little bit more of a fan for SMBs who are not technically savvy, having an internet buddy who can help install conversion tracking code without the risk of it breaking. Like that to me is interesting. I'm less excited about an internet agentic buddy that is going to run wild with creative and run wild with budgets and bidding. But to Jill's point, if it learns and does better, that's lovely. The reason I think it's important to make the distinction between that agent within Google Ads and the agentic web is that we as marketers are going to have to start thinking about communicating with our customers on the agentic web versus this one agent. So I think it's the other kind of thing at the back of my mind is the tools that are going to service customers for Google Ads and all of their various channels. This is not in the API yet. This is a UI specific experience. So this seems like a really interesting play by Google to kind of test how much do users trust them versus need to lean on that third party resource for those trusted recommendations, those trusted applied opportunities. There were a number of tool providers at GML. I am confident every single one of them asked, when is it going to be in the API? When is it going to be in the API? So I would look to see how much do you love what the agent is recommending to you. And if the answer is you don't, there's a whole plethora of tools out there that are building very similar sorts of experiences, but with that third party protection mindset in mind.
So I liked it, but that is because the example they gave actually was deeper than just the account. It went on to say, why do website visits drop? It was really that step deeper than just what was happening in Google Ads. So that is one thing I liked. The second thing is when I asked that direct question, they then clarified, but it will go deeper. And so I do believe it may go deeper. I do understand the concern, particularly business owners who love those recommendations going in, doing that and just having sort of that paragraph reasoning to put in that recommendation. That said, when I look at the recommendations tab writ large, I actually do think it was really, really helpful for me in terms of I do a lot of training. I do a lot of teaching brand new paid search, people in the industry. And when they see that tab, they'll say, well, what about this, this, and this? And they're showing me. And then I now have a framework that I can lead the conversations and say, yeah, in concept, that's a good idea. Here's why maybe you would do it yourself versus just hitting it and having Google do it. And then I can talk through each one of those recommendations with them, and it gives us that framework for that conversation. And clients have loved that in the past.
It'll be interesting to see if the agent can do that, right? It's one thing for it to be like, I have found these keyword opportunities. Would you like me to go add them to your campaign? And another for it to say like how they compare to your current ones and what the search volume looks like and what the impact could be. So I can't wait to test it. Not sure yet if I'll recommend it.
And it's worth noting the recommendations tab, and this is going way back in time, was heavily inspired by another software's work week or kind of automated suggestions. So just because there are these automatically applied suggest or the kind of in UI agent doesn't necessarily mean that the tools are going to go out of business. But what you will start to see is more questions about what is the value that you tool are providing over what's in the UI. Because to be honest, Sarah's right. There's a lot of deeper questions and insights that the agent provided than the normal recommendations tab. Like there definitely was a lot more empathy. Now, granted, that was a controlled demo. I'd be interested to see it in an uncontrolled demo, but for what it's worth, the fact that that is what got demoed means that the tools that are out there in today's market are inspiring Google to serve that particular need. So it'll free up bandwidth for those tools to serve even bigger needs.
Yeah, but see, my thing with that is that it's going to provide context and be like, XYZ happened here. These are the suggestions. But my mind goes, well, isn't that just providing context to the recommendations that we are already seeing? Isn't it like it's still like I still see it as like literally the same thing in my mind? I can't get past it for whatever reason.
I want to actually draw a comparison to Google and Microsoft's take on PMax Creative. Google Gemini does a pretty decent job of crawling your site and coming up with creative options, and it gives you a single prescriptive path. Microsoft's Copilot will go in and actually give you some options, but then give you a choice to adapt to your tone. So I think the point that we're all making is that it needs that context. The question is Google willing to relinquish the control on that prescriptive path? Based off of what I saw, I don't know that Google is willing to relinquish the control, but I'm curious what you guys think.
It's interesting because the theme of this Google Marketing Live overall, and it's the first year I will say this, the theme was more transparency and more control. I mean, just look what happened to PMax. I know a lot of it got pre-announced, but the channel reporting, search terms reporting, asset level reporting, negative keywords. It wasn't announced at GML, but demand gen, we also got channel reporting, channel controls, lots more transparency into the way it's thinking. So like that overall was a new theme this year, which I found really interesting, that on the one hand, it's like, look, there's these AI agents that are going to just manage your ads for you. But then on the other hand, if you're managing the power pack of search and demand gen and performance max yourself, we're giving you much more control and much more transparency than you had before versus saying, just trust the AI. So they were like conflicting messages, which is, I think, one of the reasons it's been so hard for me to digest what happened at GML. But that transparency and control thing was absolutely, in my opinion, a direct response to advertiser feedback, which was really cool. Like, when have we ever come out of GML saying, whoa, we just got more transparency and control than we're used to?
Well, and I agree. I have a hard time with starting to get control when I've trained my brain and my clients, more importantly, not to expect the control. I've talked to Ameet about this. Like, I truly believed in PMax at the core. And there was something comfortable about not being able to see things because you got some, frankly, fewer questions on the client end a lot of times.
Well,
That's totally fair. I feel like I really, like at my agency at the very least, like we very much welcome those conversations a lot. So then for me, I'm like, I kind of just went back to my director of client retention. I was like, you're going to have some fun conversations this year. So now I have to do a whole debrief with him on Monday, but like, it's
the fun conversation is going to be, look, here's a PMax channel report. Oh, look, the display ROAS is half of what it is on search. Cut off display. And then we have to say, you can't cut off display. Like, that was my issue with that announcement. That I know there's like things we can do, but there's like the transparency, not the control. Whereas with a search terms report in PMax, there's your transparency, and then negative keywords, that's the control. And I know there's things we can do to try to optimize and add assets, whatever, but like that channel performance, I didn't want it to have the control. To Sarah's point, I'm glad it doesn't. The whole point of PMax is that it doesn't, but I actually think that was a mistake for Google to launch that.
I fully agree. PMax's intent was to be bias-free. Like, that was the whole point. And I think that there is a real loss in PMax showing you what's happening and not giving you the resources to really do much about it other than pull creative. But it is worth noting that PMax, along with AI Max, both lean very heavily on your website and feeds. And I think one of the reasons why lead gen felt so sad about GML and like, where are the updates for us? despite the fact that Jenny did an amazing post of all the ways that there are tools for lead gen and how to deploy all these tools for lead gen. The truth is lead gen doesn't really have a lot of tools that are specific to them. And I think the reason why websites are now at the heart of both AI Max and PMax is so that organic websites get fed into Google so that Google can actually have data to train on lead gen resources. It's very easy for Google to put out e-commerce specific tools because the data is sexy. It's really easy to prove results. I mean, we can debate whether we agree with all of the stats that were shared, but I mean, there were some pretty impressive, great stats. There's not as much there on the lead gen side. And so opening that door, encouraging lead gen folks to include their organic websites and to collaborate more with SEO. I mean, SEO getting that shout out in the PPC room was important. That was a teleprompter moment. That was not like just a off the cuff comment. So definitely pay attention to how much organic can help you, but also pay attention to how much website data might start to inform lead gen tools, because Google's now going to have that data to think about better resources for lead gen.
Perfect. Let's move on to the next topic. YouTube and all the changes that are happening on that side. The branded attributed searches is something that I'm really looking forward to, because we've always known that the halo effect exists. And we've had to kind of make arguments for them with our clients. And now we're finally going to be able to kind of go back and be like, this is what's happening. But I think the biggest or the niftiest thing about it is the brand mapping of us being able to go back and be like, these are the brands that we want to track. These are like, the products that we want to track, and not letting Google be the only one to determine that is really cool for me. What are y'all's thoughts on just not even on branded, but just all of the YouTube updates that are coming out?
Well, so the brand one I can answer because I've told everyone that I always doing that. So, and this I learned from my Google rep, right? My Google rep said, create an audience of all the viewers of your specific ads. So I would do like Q3 ads and put all our YouTube creative in there. And then I would take that audience and add it in observation mode on all my branded search. In fact, I added it on all my search campaigns by default as part of my workflow. So I could see, did people who see our YouTube ads come back, search category, generic terms, or search for the brand afterwards. And then I could look at all the performance metrics across that. So I was doing that anyway. I think they just made that workflow faster. I mean, that I'm always excited about, because whenever you run YouTube, especially at the level that my clients did, which was a huge initiative, going through months and months of creative, months of strategy as far as what videos would actually be seen and the message they would deliver. How do you know, is it working? Is our, absolute full 9-month effort to produce this beautiful ad working? We can do that now. So I answered the first part of your question. So I'll let others answer, because I was so hooked on answering that I forgot the other question.
No, you have a great trick set. I mean, you know me, I love a good audience solution. What I love about attributed brand search is, to me, this is actually a lot more, it's like a better incrementality testing than the incrementality testing feature. Of all the announcements, it was the first one. I turned to Ginny and I was just like, tell me more. Because you'll be able to see, when you're measuring YouTube now, either you're running YouTube through demand gen and it's on a conversion objective, or you're running YouTube through a video campaign, so it's on a views or impressions objective. And I think this attributed brand searches metric gives us this really nice in between, because the user is taking an action. They saw the ad somehow fine. They took the action to go search and find out more, even if it wasn't yet the conversion. So it really fills that mid-funnel piece there. And I do think this could be beneficial to advertisers of all sizes, because before, if you wanted to see this, it was search lift. You had to spend a certain amount and go through your Google rep and on and on and on. And now all accounts will be able to have this attributed brand searches as a metric. So I am very excited about that one. But to your point, Ameet, there was a ton about YouTube at GML, even noticing the Google G logo and the YouTube logo next to each other everywhere. Google really, it was clear they were emphasizing YouTube as another brand they own, which, as we know, it's the world's second largest search engine, and Gen Z loves it, and we all love it too, millennials and Xers. But yeah, it was great to see.
I'll say that my view on all the YouTube announcements, because you both covered, I agree with everything that was said. So in the interest of net new content, my experience as a consumer on YouTube is very, very different than my experience as an advertiser. As an advertiser, I am tickled pink. I love the amount of tools at my fingertips. I love the AI that you can, as a marketer, caveat, as a marketer, that you can know the exact moment when someone is focused on content so that you're really getting in front of them. I love the shopping ads for shorts, especially on TV. Like, that's super exciting. As a consumer, we are being bombarded with ads, and there is a real potential friction point on sentiment. So as much as it is really tempting to take full advantage of all these amazing tools, you want to remember to keep the human in mind and your consumer in mind. So yes, engage with this. Yes, leverage all of the brand lift studies, but then also do your own internal testing around brand sentiment and make sure that you're not spoiling that brand sentiment by bombarding people with not great ads in the middle of the content that they're actively trying to watch. Now, the other thing that I think is really interesting is that they took a direct swipe at TikTok, as TikTok is at its most vulnerable with their creator studio, kind of that influencer hub. I will be honest, I was not expecting that to be one of the announcements of like, here's a whole amazing creator influencer hub, in part because the creators on YouTube have been complaining about YouTube. And so the fact that Google is investing not only in the advertisers, but in the creators to really provide that partnership opportunity is really, really special. So again, the tool is great. Like, I think the tools are all awesome. Just don't forget to check in with the humans and make sure that, yes, people might be searching for you, but they also might be getting irritated with you. So you just got to be careful.
Totally fair. Totally fair.
Actually, the Creator Hub, sorry, I had forgotten the first part of your question. So I actually used that a couple of years ago. Like, Google came out with it and put it in beta and offered it to the brand that I was working with. And I mentioned this, I kind of whispered it in someone's ear, is our social team did not love it. It actually, what it was it was a contract negotiation tool. So it was basically from the advertiser's perspective within the Google platform. You could, like, suppose I saw Navah, I could see all the stats from your particular channel. How many subscribers did you have? How many views were you getting? I could literally have that interaction versus seeking you out, trying to find you, trying to negotiate that. It was that connection piece and then the data behind it. And the reason our social team didn't love it, and mutually it raised some questions, is because traditionally social and paid search are siloed off. And part of that value add for that social team is they're experts in that influencer culture, that influencer negotiation, the scripting of it. There was just a lot of additional layers that opened on both sides. And we also happen to have a different social agency than a paid search agency. And we did not want that social team back in our ads account. It was a hard stop, no, on both sides for that. But again, just something to think about.
So it's really interesting. The socialization of search has been going on for years. And I think this year, more than any year, is the year when you can't have separate paid search and paid social teams. You just can't. You have to have some degree of empathy for paid social if you're a paid search marketer, and you have to have some degree of empathy for paid search if you're a paid social first marketer. Demand gen is a really good kind of proving ground there, and all the amazing tools that launched are helpful. But I also would definitely recommend playing with all the other paid social accounts. You don't actually need to spend any dollars to start interacting with the interfaces. There is no platform, actually, that, at least none that I've stumbled upon, where you actually have to spend money to engage with the interface. You might have to verify your account, but if you're looking for a go-to, especially in the socialization of search era, it's definitely to play with different platforms just to get some taste for it, because Google is actually building in reporting to show the impact of other social platforms for it. So Google is not ignoring it. Google is building tools for the socialization of search. So if you want to be a Google first marketer, which historically has been a paid search marketer, that has to evolve a little bit. You're now a paid media person. You're not just a paid search person.
And even within the interface and the campaign types, I find it so interesting. If you look at the Power Pack, we have AI Max for search, fine. We have Performance Max, which is a bundle of channels around a conversion objective. And then we have Demand Gen, which is now a bundle of channels around an engagement objective. So you really see Google moving away from these standalone channel-specific campaign types and instead orienting almost like Facebook in a way, more around objective-focused campaign types. Because like if you run a video campaign now, it's only for a reach objective. That's it. If you run demand gen, it's for a clicker conversion objective. If you're on Performance Max, of course, only smart bidding, only conversion. So like, what happens to display campaigns, forgotten stepchild? And like, standalone shopping is still there. We're still getting some innovation there. I don't think it's being deprecated, but like, it's hard to see a clear place for those kind of standalone channel specific things. And we have PMax, demand gen, and then of course, bread and butter search. So I find that there's a lot of silo breaking down happening on the consumer side, on the practitioner side, and then even within the interface, which I find interesting.
Okay, let's move on to the last topic, AI overview. They are now going to be showing ads. How do we feel?
About time.
Agreed.
Spoken like true advertisers.
Well, it's just, we've been told they're coming. They're coming. It's like George R. R. Martin with his next book. Like, it's coming. Like, ads were finally spotted in the wild. What I will say is that AI overviews having ads and AI mode having ads is the right answer to, I think, the wrong question. So AI overviews is very much a zero-click mindset where you look at a whole bunch of products or information and you, in theory, don't need to do anything after looking at the AI overviews. And the ads serving in those typically are going to have a shopping flavor to them. I was honestly far more interested in the AI mode, kind of agents working together and the paid engagements off of that, because the AI overviews not having ads for as long as they haven't, I suspect that's because the goal was knowledge. It wasn't to actually do action. And if you were going to do action, like, would you have done it off of the AI overview? So I'll be interested to see if the ads perform well. And we won't know because we won't get any data, but I don't know that the AI overviews is going to ultimately keep ads, but I think AI mode getting ads is going to be a far more interesting, compelling question. But it won't be like a traditional ad. It'll be an agentic monetization piece.
And you guys, I tried the virtual try on and I took that picture that Jyll and I took in the mirror. I had one of just me and I tried on a dress. I mean,
oh my goodness. That was
Yeah.
nothing like the dress you were wearing in that picture.
no, I was wearing a plain black dress. Like I didn't even put, and it kept my phone, it kept my face, this is so cool. But then if I click on that's a $59 dress, I go straight to the J. Crew website. Like nothing is monetized. Like why is this not totally?
They have to get people to use it first, right? And see if it will be monetized for sure. But like, what a great opportunity for retailers that so far it's just a free tool.
I know a friend of mine actually started a retail brand not too long ago, and literally I snapped pictures, kept on sending. I'm like, if you do not implement, I'm like, I swear we are no longer friends. Like, you have to try this out. I need to know everything. Because I'm like, we don't do a lot of e-commerce work. We're mainly lead generation, right? So like, I won't be able to get to try that feature. I mean, I don't know ever, but like anytime soon really at this point. So like for me, I'm just like scouring through my friends and I'm like, who can I force to do these things? Because I really want to see how this is going to play out. The feature that I thought was kind of cool in terms of like the shopping side of things is the price drop. That I thought was really, really, really nifty. My concern with it is the checkout process, that it'll just buy it for you, where I'm like, okay, but what if it's like a no refund policy on that product, but I didn't want it anymore and I forgot to tell, like, yeah, I feel like that's going to cause a lot of problems eventually at some point.
There was a story about a woman whose son bought like $70,000 worth of snacks off of Amazon just as a whoopsie daisy. And I could see that whoopsie daisy happening all the time. But the other thing I'm thinking about for Amazon retailers is there are very strict rules about the buy box. Amazon has to have the cheapest rate. And I am very concerned that this tool is going to pull a whole bunch of Amazon sellers and resellers out of their rankings, out of their buy box, because it's going to put them directly in conflict with Amazon rules. So there's a part of me that wonders if this isn't kind of, hey, come at me, Amazon play by Google of like getting people off of Amazon, but we'll see. Sorry, I know I already made my comment.
Well, I feel like this is probably a good wrapping point. I feel like we talked about a lot. I think that might be enough for people to digest for today. I know I'm going to have to sit around thinking about this for like a good solid 2 hours afterwards as well. So thank you so much, Navah and Jyll, for joining us. Why don't you guys take a quick second to let us know where we can find you online?
Sure. I'm Jyll Saskin Gales. I also have a YouTube channel, _Google_Pro. So feel free to hop on over And follow me there. I have a weekly Google Ads podcast there called Inside Google Ads.
And I am on LinkedIn and Blue Sky. I also do a monthly Ask the PPC for Search Engine Journal and a quarterly column for Search Engine Land. You can always just come say hi. Always happy to help.
Thank you so much for being here. For anyone watching and listening, if you liked this video, please like, subscribe, share, all of the things. And also, if you have any feedback, let us know. We'd love to improve. But yeah, thank you for joining us. Bye.
Thanks.
All right.